Welcome to today's news briefing. I'm Sandy Close, Director of Ethnic Media Services, joined by Regina Brown-Wilson, Director of California Black Media, and El Clasificado. Thanks to all of our media colleagues for joining today's call. Our focus is to introduce Listos California, an emergency preparedness campaign anchored in the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. With COVID-19 spreading, the fire season starting, and earthquakes an ever-present threat, today's briefing couldn't be more timely. We are honored to have Justin Knight, co-chair of Listos California, start us with an overview of the campaign. He will be followed by speakers from 3 of the hundreds of community-based organizations working to engage the state's most vulnerable communities in the campaign. These speakers include Rosa Maria Hammer with Catholic Charities of Santa Rosa, Terrence Stone with Young Visionaries Youth Leadership Academy in the Inland Empire, and Kent Wu of Nico's Chinese Health Coalition in San Francisco. Listos co-chair Karen Baker, will then talk about the data that informs the Listos California campaign and its communication strategies. Following their presentations, we will open the conference up for 5 minutes for your questions. We will then introduce Tina Curry, Deputy Director of the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and Maricela Rodriguez, Director of Civic Engagement and Strategic Partnership for Governor Gavin Newsom. They will update us on the administration's campaigns to combat COVID-19, as well as prepare for future disasters. Following their presentations, we will open the conference for a final round of Q&A with all our speakers. This is a unique opportunity for us to hear from and talk with top leaders in the state's efforts to help all California's diverse communities deal with COVID-19 and prepare for future disasters. We will be sending all attendees a video of today's conference, along with biographies and contact information from each of our speakers, together with links to Listos California information translated in multiple languages. We will send this out early this afternoon. Before we start, Jessica Martin will instruct you on how to submit questions through the chat box. Jessica.
Hi, welcome everyone. Good morning. If you are joining us by laptop or computer, there'll be a bar of icons at the bottom of your screen. There is a chat icon there. Click that and please chat with everyone to submit questions. If you are joining by a smartphone, there's 3 dots in the right-hand corner. You want to click those 3 dots. It'll say click more. The chat function will be there and you can enter questions there. If you are simply dialing in, you cannot use the chat function, but you can submit questions via the contact emails listed in the invite. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will have all our attendees muted except for our speakers. And then when you ask, when we call on you to ask a question, we will unmute you. Any questions that we don't get to in the chat box, we will be sure to direct to relevant speakers on today's panel. So we begin with Justin Knight, campaign co-chair. Justin, thank you so much for inspiring today's briefing.
Thank you so much, Sandy. And I just want to extend a quick thank you to all of our other media partners on the line, Ethnic Media Services, EC Hispanic Media, El Clasificado, and California Black Media. Bienvenidos todos. On behalf of my co-chair, Karen Baker, who you'll be hearing shortly, and myself, thank you for all of our panelists and speakers today, and all of you members of the media who reach the people, the people in California who are directly connected to the diverse and vulnerable communities that we know are disproportionately impacted by disaster, that becomes even further exacerbated during this global pandemic. Listos California started as an early action of Governor Newsom when he assumed office, and in a demonstration of his commitment to support and invest in diverse and vulnerable communities, working with the legislature to invest $50 million that established Listos California in legislation AB 72. And it's been a journey since then to build our network of partners, close to 200, over 200 partners, and a few of them on the line here to talk about their work in community, what that looks like, and how it's being, very much tailored and designed to reach the needs of community and our partners that are experts in reaching diverse and vulnerable communities. Our charge from the very get has been to, deliver culturally competent and in language accessible information on preparedness to diverse vulnerable that are defined as older Californians, people living with people with disabilities, people living in poverty, and people with language barriers. And then we made a very intentional decision to expand that scope to include tribal communities, Black community, LGBT communities, youth, and other segments of the population that continue to be, impacted. We have great research that we'll be sharing with my co-chair shortly on just how we approach this campaign and what that looked like, to know exactly where communities are, and how we have designed our materials, our outreach, our infrastructure to reach them. This becomes further exacerbated by the challenges of systems of bias that exist at all levels, that we've seen come to light with this new awareness and people power on the streets, and really looking at how do we double down and ramp up our efforts to invest in communities and lift the voices and the people that have the trust and the commitment and engagement of the communities that we're trying to reach. Listos California exists to address these discrepancies rooted in systematic racism and bias, so that we're able to invest in, as a state program within a governor's office, to work with and collaborate with community in a very different way. Because at the end of the day, now more than ever, it's about survival and making sure that people have the information that they need to create a baseline of preparedness. The simple steps, the 5 steps that will create a new culture of preparedness in the state that doesn't seem overwhelming, that doesn't seem out of touch. It doesn't matter if you are a renter or in a multi-generational home. Simple steps that will start to make preparedness more tangible and accessible to all. So thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you to all of our speakers who will help ground us in all the different layers and dynamics of our work that focuses primarily on preparing diverse, vulnerable communities for wildfire, earthquake, and flood, and how that's been expanded to also include COVID-19 and our work with the governor's office on a variety of campaigns. So thank you, Sandy, and we'll let the true stars of the show take it from here.
Thank you. We're now joined by Rosa Maria Hammer with Catholic Charities in Santa Rosa. Rosa.
Thank you so much, Sandy. As one of the hundreds of trusted community-based organizations hand in hand with the Listos campaign all across the state to bring its free, accessible, and timely emergency readiness information to our most vulnerable communities. I am so honored to be here on behalf of Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Santa Rosa. One of the main things that we are encouraging our families to be listos or ready is urging families to take 5 simple steps into preparedness, including get official alerts to know what to do, make a plan to protect your people by creating an emergency contact list and an evacuation plan, pack a go bag with things you need, build a stay-at-home box when you can't leave your home, help friends and neighbors get ready. Some of the ways that we've been engaging our families in the Santa Rosa area, in Napa Valley, our regions, have been through online training, socially distanced in-person training, and great partnerships that with our public health colleagues and other service providers in our region. And I'll pause here and let you hear of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. There are already so many questions I'd like to ask both Justin and you, but let's go to our next community-based organization speaker, Terrence Stone, with Young Visionaries Youth Leadership Academy in the Inland Empire. Mr. Stone.
Thank you, and thank you, Rosa Marie. And hello, everyone. My name is Terrence Stone. I'm founder and CEO of Young Visionaries Youth Leadership Academy. We've been serving in San Bernardino County for almost 20 years, serving over 65,000 youth and families. Our team is helping promote the Listos California campaign by collaborating with our existing programs, sharing the emergency preparedness guides to youth and families, and having them refer their friends as well. We partner with IEHP with our monthly virtual trainings on their online platform. We currently hosting our COVID-19 family support events where we provide resources such as food, hygiene, supplies, clothing, household essentials, the emergency preparedness guide, helpful toolkits, and the five key essential points to prepare for a disaster, to approximately 2,000 households in the San Bernardino County, serving over 8,000 family members a month. We also do face-to-face trainings, weekly phone banking, and email blasts. We're running commercials on Spectrum and iHeartRadio, utilizing different online marketing tools as well. I just want to say thank you for letting us share this space with you today.
That's terrific. And the fact that you're actually engaging trusted messengers who are young people who can get to parents with this information makes you truly indispensable.
Thank you.
Our third community-based organization representative is Kent Wu, who is director of Nikos Chinese Health Coalition in San Francisco. Mr. Wu.
Thank you, Sandy, and hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here representing Nikos Chinese Health Coalition as a member of this very wonderful campaign. Nikos is focusing its efforts on San Francisco's Chinese community. We are conducting outreach and education on the topics most relevant to the community. So this includes earthquakes, extreme heat, and COVID-19, of course. We're reaching the community in person and online. And even as I speak, our staff are currently in San Francisco Chinatown at a food pantry distributing in-language information to hundreds of low-income, limited English proficient community members. So again, just very pleased to be part of this very wonderful campaign.
Thank you. You're all too modest. You speak too briefly. I'm so glad we have time for Q&A. Now we go to Karen Baker, along with Justin Knight, the co-chair of Listos California, with a long background in volunteer organizing in California. Ms. Baker.
Thank you so much. And just want to again thank everyone on the line that it is just such an important link to our ethnic communities and helps to uplift stories that need to be told. Not only because there is really bold and brilliant work that's being done, not only by the three people you've heard from, but by hundreds of nonprofit partners who are getting the word out in really creative and dynamic ways. And we need those stories told so our community members can really both know about those 5 steps that Rosa Maria went over, but really understand that this is a campaign that is really for everyone because it's in their language. All of our materials are in English, Spanish, Hmong, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, and Tagalog. So I want to begin by just letting you know it's accessible, it's ADA compliant. We care deeply about making sure that this is really going to be able to reach and speak to everyone where they're at. So the outreach strategies have been really informed, first and foremost, by really important data that we conducted with a partner out of Oakland, the EMC Research, that helped us understand that it's not that people didn't know they needed to be prepared. 88%, when we asked, said they know they need to be prepared. The challenge was that they were scared, they thought it was expensive, and they thought it was time consuming. So our challenge from the get-go has been to create products and partnerships that can make it affordable, easy, and actually empowering. How can you be there to protect yourself, your family, and make things safe for people, regardless if you're getting ready for a wildfire season that's about to come on us all or has landed, or in the middle of a pandemic. So I want to begin by letting you know about the data that is really driving this. We've done an extensive inventory of all the preparedness campaigns, both at the federal, state, regional, local level, to really find what are the messages that really resonate, that are the important things for people to know. That's how we came up with the 5 steps. That's the what we talk about. And then how we're getting the word out is also really, I think, some innovative things. One that we are announcing today. Today we're launching a first of its kind texting curriculum campaign in all of our Listos California languages. This course is the first time a state will use text messaging to train and educate the general public. And anyone can enroll in the course as of today by texting, and I'll say this slowly, LISTOSCA to 72345. That's 72345. And texts are available in English, Spanish, Tagalog, Cantonese, Vietnamese, Korean, and Hmong. So we're very excited about that. And lastly, I'll just say, one of the interesting things about this campaign, as we all know, it began in June of 2019. It ends in December 2020. And in that time, the focus was initially supposed to be on natural disasters. When we saw COVID arrive in March, we immediately pivoted and allowed our CBO partners and their subgrantees to spend up to 20% of their grant on COVID-19 education. It was just that critical. We then did that for a 3-month period, but then as we started to see the rates go up again, we have now just recently, once again, reopened and allowed an additional 20% to go out into the community to use marketing campaign materials, great strong graphics, social media tools to really ensure that people know how to stay safe during COVID by wearing a mask, social distancing, washing your hands, and other tips. So I just want to speak to those efforts and then really get back to your questions.
Thank you. This is now our moment for questions, and I want to just begin by saying, Terrence Stone, we lost some of your presentation because of communication problems, audio problems. So I'd like to just ask you quickly, before we take questions from our media, how do you engage young people to feel the responsibility to inform families and communities about preparing for future disasters, let alone for COVID? What would you say is the most important message for young people you've been able to mobilize around this campaign? How have you done it?
Awesome. Thank you for that question. I hope everyone could hear me okay. But we've been engaging our young people mostly online, just trying to meet them where they are at, whether it be Facebook or Instagram and different social media methods, which has been working best for us as well. Also, we realize that when we give back to the community shows up for us as well too. So we have we call them pull up and pickups. So the community, they can come by, and we're giving out toys and household essentials and food and clothing and things like that to the community. But also, even before they register or in their registration process, they're getting all the Listos California information, basically. So they're watching the videos and things like that. And people say, well, does that hinder the registration process? Well, we will work with 500 households a week, and our lists fill up within 24 hours every week that we put together an event. Actually, coming up this Saturday, we have one in the city of Barstow. And last Friday, we were over in San Bernardino working with Amazon, and the same thing, the list just fills up tremendously and expeditiously every time that we put together an event like that. And that's purposely to get out that information.
Great, thank you so much. I think that was so valuable addition. And a quick question for Justin Knight. Justin Knight, you mentioned that this was really the first time a state embarked on a campaign like this. What was the inspiration for it? Early on in the governor's administration, what made this rise to the top? It was before the pandemic.
That's a great question. Thank you for that. I mean, look, in a state with the amount of disasters we've been experiencing in recent history and the uptick of just wildfire, I think, you don't have to be in California to know that wildfires and earthquakes and these disasters are, becoming more and more of a challenge. Diverse, vulnerable populations have always been a priority in a state as diverse as California, and it has been an integral part of the work to make sure that Californians are given what they need. I think when Governor Newsom, then elect Governor Newsom, was asked by Governor Brown to go and help with the leadership efforts around Camp Fire up in Butte, I think he saw firsthand how diverse, vulnerable Californians, older Californians, isolated, socially isolated Californians, people with disabilities were disproportionately impacted, and saw that firsthand on the ground. Keep in mind that Governor Newsom was a mayor of San Francisco, and worked in collaboration with a group called NERT, Neighborhood Emergency Response Teams. San Francisco likes to do a little differently. Everywhere else in the world, it's called CERT, Community Emergency Response Teams. But the governor knew, and it's kind of ingrained in his leadership history, this idea of a neighbor-to-neighbor strategy. It will be a neighbor-to-neighbor trusted messenger to the communities that rely on them for information, to deliver preparedness information, but also to kind of shift the thinking a little bit in our state around people seeing themselves as first responders, not the folks that are going to go grab a hose in front of their house and fight the flames. That's not what we mean by seeing themselves as first responders. But what we do mean is you get an evacuation order from CAL FIRE in collaboration with Cal OES on major wildfire, and you know what to do. You're not questioning that order. You're not having to hear it multiple times before you actually evacuate your home. You hear the order, you realize the severity of the situation, you get your family and your go bag, and you use your plan that you've already created for your evacuation route. And more importantly, you're not simply just taking care of your own. The abuela across the street, who may not know the same information that you do, go across the street, knock on her door to make sure she's getting to safety. The family down the road who have a ton of livestock and animals, you're going over to them to say, hey, evacuation order was just issued. We got to get out of here. Do you know what to do with your animals? I do. Here's the number you need to call to make sure that they're safe, and then you need to get out, right? So these communities and this mindset has definitely been ingrained as part of the work in California. I think what's new and different is delivering this information through a network of CBOs, of local partners, and infrastructure that has been built so that it's not just the state or local government or counties acting alone. That work is essential and has continued to be and will continue to be an important part of the puzzle. But what we have now are community organizations that didn't know about disaster or preparedness before, that we've helped build the capacity so that it becomes part of the work that they're doing to deliver programs and social services and other needs to community, and treat them as one. So it's the work in the partnership with organizations that have to trust in community that's new. But Karen may want to add a couple of other, I've missed anything.
Well, we have a couple of questions and I want to get to them. And then Karen, do you have anything you want to add about the sort of launching inspiration for Listos? Can you unmute Karen?
I think Justin covered it fine. I can address some of the things that are coming up in chat as far as the code that you need. That's that number that I mentioned, 72345, to access the text curriculum that we're launching today.
So this is really a news break for us that the campaign is going to launch a text curriculum and text messages, and here's how to sign up for them. That's very exciting. So I'm going to go to Shristi Prabha, who has a question. Shristi, I hope we have unmuted you. Yes, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I guess my question is for Karen, because I noticed you were missing a lot of South Asian languages. So as you might know, like in Sacramento, there are many people that don't speak, they speak Punjabi, or they speak Hindi, or they speak Bangladeshi. So just how you guys came to decide which languages were the ones you were sending out information in, and what gaps were you trying to fill? Like, how did you get to this point?
That's a great question. First of all, this program, when it was set up, we realized with $50 million, there is no way that we could cover educating the 1/4 of the California population that is considered vulnerable with $50 million. So decisions were made to limit the campaign and focus on 24 counties as a kind of a primary focus area, and then allow materials that were developed to live digitally on our website so that any county can benefit from downloading those materials or grabbing this text curriculum, etc. So when we looked at the 24 counties that were selected, and I can certainly list those very quickly, Alameda, Butte, El Dorado, Fresno, Glen, Imperial, Lake, Madera, Mendocino, Monterey, Napa, Nevada, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Shasta, Siskiyou, Solano, Sonoma, Tehama, Trinity, and Tulare. Those were the 24 that had applied through a competitive process. And when we looked at their populations and we looked at the non-English speakers for those 24 counties, these 6 languages were the languages that were listed according to the census as the languages that we needed to produce materials in order to make it accessible to those first 24 counties. We have in grants at those local level money available so that if a community decides that it has additional communities that it needs to reach in order to really make it available to all community members, there's adequate funds for them to translate materials. So in Napa and Sonoma, Rosa Maria can speak to the fact that they really realized they had a large Mixteca community that was really important to educate, especially a lot of their farm workers that needed information in their language. So they're in the process of translating those materials. This is possible in any of the counties with dollars that they have. So Sacramento, to your specific point, wasn't one of the 24. So that's why Punjabi and some of the other languages were not initially selected.
I'm going to go. We have time for about 2 more questions. We have a lot more. Lisa Fitch in Los Angeles has a question. And then Lisa, can we unmute you?
Yes, thank you. I noticed, was Los Angeles County one of those 24? Any CBOs in South LA participating?
In Los Angeles, we ended up, we have 24 community-based organizations that are in the 24 counties that are the ones that won the competitive process. Los Angeles did apply, but was not selected. However, we were very interested in reaching really high-need communities in LA and provided a grant through American Red Cross, who did door-to-door education of preparedness training in very low-income communities throughout Los Angeles. So American Red Cross was the lead agency, but we worked at really targeting a very tight list of the very specific list of neighborhoods that they needed to reach that is not their typical target, so that we could offer it in multiple languages and really reach really diverse and vulnerable communities there.
So I should really contact the American Red Cross LA division.
Yes, and we can connect you there. Yeah.
So sorry, Justin, go ahead.
I just want to add really quick context for folks. I mean, part of the vision for this campaign was to try something new, to be a little innovative, to take the elements of what's already being done in preparedness and kind of grow it from there, and to think about different ways and strategies and vehicles and partnerships and collaboration to see what works. I mean, this has always been designed as a pilot. What is working? How does this campaign, knowing that we want to provide the resources and the materials and make it accessible to all electronically, but how do we focus on very specific communities to try something new, to help shape new thinking and new investments moving forward? So that's part of the rationale for not being in every single county, and making sure that we have the resources to be devoted into core communities as part of this pilot, to see what works and to see how it goes when you work with community.
I'm going to cut you off because we have several more questions and we want to get to our last speakers. Jean Ho at News for Chinese, you have a question for Kent Wu.
Yes, I was just a little bit curious about the extreme heat, because that particular category hasn't really occurred to me. It's a matter of emergency, but it is true, like especially in where I am in San Jose, South Bay Area, as well as East Bay Area, it's been particularly hot for the past few weeks. And I'm just a little bit curious, because usually the heat shelter will be an air-conditioned space, say like in libraries or community center, but then that becomes a very undesirable situation in time of COVID-19. So, the fact that you're lumping people, under the same roof in an enclosed, space. So I was just really curious, what might be an alternative, or have anybody ever thought of what to do in extreme heat shelter situation during COVID-19?
No, and you raised a very good point, because we're actually looking for solutions right now. So as you mentioned previously, it was going to the public library. It was going to some of the neighborhood-based City College of San Francisco locations. It was going to the Parks and Rec Department rec centers where there was air conditioning. But all those places are closed right now. So we are working with the city. We're sending out messages to different nonprofits to see who might be able to have space that can hold folks, or to give them temporary respite. It's particularly dire, I know, in San Jose because of the heat there, but also in San Francisco, Chinatown, where a lot of people live in single room occupancy buildings, where there might be 50 people on one floor sharing one bathroom and one kitchen, without any air conditioning and with very few windows. So we are looking for solutions, but right now, it's just a search right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Julian Doe from Los Angeles.
Yes, hi, thank you. I have a question. is there a plan to outreach to Buddhist temples, Islamic mosques, and other faiths to be part of the outreach and messaging information to diverse communities?
Yes, I can speak to this a little bit. Yes, we have actually had a lot of interfaith council meetings and events where we've talked with very diverse denominations, encouraging communities of faith to be able to take this messaging and get it out to their community. We'll be speaking in another week or two to the San Francisco faith community as just an example. All I can do is encourage that you help us get the word out that these materials are available in language, and we'd love to forge even more partnerships at the community level with communities of faith. Also, just realize that many of our subgrantees are faith-based organizations. So there are already some of those linkages. And if you are located in one of those 24, especially, there is probably an opportunity to contact that main CBO and let them know of your interest in forging a partnership.
Thank you. We have a number more questions, but I'm going to hold them until our final round of Q&A and go now to Tina Curry, who is Deputy Director of the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Thank you, Ms. Curry.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Sandy, for organizing this, and so grateful to all of you for taking time out of your morning to come together to talk with us and hopefully inform us on our important efforts for preparedness. As Sandy said, I'm with the Office of Emergency Services here at the state level. We're so grateful and proud to California program with Karen and Justin. And, you know, obviously this was important to us. Disasters are very real for Californians. They happen to us often, and we have the most people. So preparedness, while it might not be the thing that Cal OES, our office, is most known for, it is definitely one, if not its most important mission. So, so when this campaign happened, and then we all, you know, we all experienced the onset of COVID that really just has left no one untouched, affects each and every one of us nationally, here in California, across the world. The ability to pivot that campaign to take important preparedness information to those who needed it most and be able to apply it to something that was really happening to them was so important to us. And I'm just grateful to the team that was able to do that and in real time make that important change so that we were targeting what we had and what we had envisioned to be what was most important to people in this moment. So it is the beginning. We're going to learn a lot from Listos, and my goal is to come out of that with lasting tools and products that can be then shared even farther and wider in California and beyond, so that we can take all that good stuff. You know, it was really a bringing together of a whole lot of good work and preparedness. There's a lot of that out there, maybe even too much. You know, I think that's confusing to people. So it was taking the best of everything and figuring out a way how we can really make a difference with people. And a lot of that is about trust and about getting information and learning from, you know, people want to hear that from people they already trust and not from somewhere else. And so, so really kind of figuring out how those relationships work so that that work could take place where it could be most effective with trusted people serving our communities each and every day, you know, with the diversity that that we have here in California. And, you know, and you are all a part of that too. You are trusted messengers for Californians, and hopefully this is the beginning of a partnership with all of you. And we know that while we feel that the Listos program has been really successful, we know there's always more that we can do. We know that we can always get better. There's just tremendous need in California and no shortage of disasters that are facing us now, are going to be facing us tomorrow. and who knows what's around the corner. So it's a lot for Californians. They've got a lot of other things going on in their lives. So, finding a place for this is, we know it's important, but we know it's a challenge as well for people. So we want to make it easy, and all of the tips that have been mentioned are things, in fact, that I think people could, when they take it in, can be empowered to see that, hey, we can really do this. This is realistic for me, for my family. And there's a lot of tools that are then kind of infused through the campaign that can then reach Californians. But there's more we can do. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Hopefully we can hear more from you on even more we could do. But just know that here at the state of California, we are as supportive, if not more supportive, of disaster preparedness, even while we are, like many, running an emergency operation and we have been for several months with our health partners, with the entire state family has been mobilized to support COVID-19 as we continue to go down this uncertain path of this disease, and at the same time get ready for wildfires in California. We've had hundreds of them already. We will have more, and certainly the other hazards that we could face. So we are keeping all of our efforts towards getting ready, responding, recovering from emergencies, and hopefully partnering with all of you to make sure that we're doing that in the most effective way that reaches all people of California who ultimately we're here to serve and support for emergencies. So I know Maricela is going to talk a lot more about some of the state efforts, but happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you. I think we'll go directly to Maricela Rodriguez and then open it up for questions for all speakers. Maricela is Director of Civic Engagement and Strategic Partnerships for Governor Gavin Newsom. Maricela.
Hi, thank you so much, Sandy. I want to start with just an appreciation for ethnic media services and California Black media. Before coming to the governor's office, I worked at the California Endowment and had the privilege and opportunity to work with them for many campaigns, including enrollment and voter education and a lot of other really critical issues. And so I'm very familiar and understand really the value and the power behind ethnic media in reaching those who are hardest to reach in our state. And I also want to thank Listos California. They've been a tremendous partner in helping us reach communities and really helping us transform the way that we do disaster preparedness. And that's really what they're doing, is transforming the way that we engage folks on the ground as it relates to disaster preparedness. I wanted just to spend a couple of minutes talking about what we've been doing around public education. We started the Your Actions Save Lives public awareness campaign back in March as things started to really kind of progress around COVID, and so it became very much part of the state's COVID response. The campaign is anchored by the COVID-19 website that the governor usually lists in his press conferences, and since launching, we've transformed the website into 7 different languages and are hoping to be able to do more as we continue to grow the campaign. We've been working primarily with media partners who have offered us free inventory and really created a multimedia campaign, working with folks from social media to out of home to streaming, a number of different media partners that really kind of created this innovative partnership. And recently we've also been really grateful to philanthropy, who really stepped up and helped us build a stronger campaign, as well as other folks who are starting to chip in and help us build a much stronger campaign where we're able to leverage paid media. And so one of the things that we did once we had resources was prioritize a very important message that needs to get out to California in this very moment. And we lined it up prior to the holiday weekend, which was to wear a mask. A lot of what we're doing is helping to change behavior. And we recognize that, in this moment, there are things that are changing, and sometimes they change rapidly. And our mission is to try and provide reliable, actionable information for Californians on how they can stay safe. And thank you, Karen, for modeling great behavior. So how they can stay safe and how they can do their part to prevent and slow the spread. And so when we first started, we started with the basics about washing your hands and staying 6 feet apart. We also shared information about resources that were financial, so that Californians who were impacted and needed access to paid sick leave or unemployment, we also put that messaging out there. We also launched California Connected, which is a contact tracing campaign. We engaged community-based partners in helping us think through how to approach something that is so complex as contact tracing, that's been around for decades, but also sounds very scary, but is so important to our ability to slow the spread. So how could we create messages that were very clear and emphasize some of the important messages that community would respond to? So at the end of the day, contact tracing is about connecting to care and to testing. And so really leaning on how it helps keep our community safe. And as I mentioned, we supported the stay-at-home order and really helped to normalize that and help folks understand that, what that meant, especially as it related to what was still open. And now that we've reopened the economy, we're starting to look at how do we help Californians understand what that means, especially since, as I mentioned before, sometimes information can change rapidly. And just emphasizing again, right now, one of the most important things that you can help us with is helping to relay the importance of wearing a mask, and helping us talk about why that's important and helping us change that behavior. We have a lot of content that we've created and we've put it on the COVID-19 website. There is a direct link that I can give you, and then I'll type it up when I have a minute to type, but it's toolkit.covid19.ca.gov. And so in the very beginning, when we were really starting we were building the plane and flying it at the same time, we created this campaign toolkit website, and Ethnic Media Services responded quickly to just our need to reach Californians and just asked us, like, do you have talking points? Do you have radio scripts? And so from there, we really wanted to prioritize a place to put content that was already available, that could just be plug and play, or whether it's a PSA or a graphic, or a radio script that anyone could pick up and run with. And so a lot of that material really lives on the Toolkit website right now. And in the very beginning, as I mentioned, Ethnic Media Services would pick it up and help us translate and put it out. So thank you to many of you who did that and helped us really in a very dire moment by just picking up that material that was reviewed and approved by folks at CDPH and OES. So again, reliable information that someone could just pick up and plug into the work that they were already doing. We, since then, with some of the support that we've received, have started to engage with ethnic media to help us provide information in other languages. And I don't think I mentioned them in the beginning, but we're doing Spanish, Korean, Arabic, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Cantonese, and Mandarin. And again, we hope to be able to do more because we know the need is great. As we've approached the work, we're also working to be data-driven. I think we all know that Latinos and African Americans are disproportionately impacted at really high rates, but we also recognize that there are other populations that are critical to reach in this moment, which include essential workers and folks that live in multi-generational households. So some of the things that we just started to put out just yesterday and today, and they'll continue to roll into our paid media, include PSAs about how you can safely transition from work to home and how you can protect those that you live with. The other spot that we're working on that hopefully will be final very soon is, what if you become sick and don't have a separate bathroom or bedroom? Like, what can you do to keep others safe and to mitigate the spread? And so trying to find ways to make it real for folks in terms of, like, just even things like disinfecting, using separate towels, wearing a mask, things like that can make a difference if these precautions are taken. I know I've talked a lot. I just want to also mention that, as part of our work, we're looking at geography, and we're looking at population, trying to really stay close to what the data is telling us. In addition to what we're doing with ethnic media and paid media, we're also working to bring in partners who can help us put the information in community. And one of the partnerships I'm really excited about is with the Grocers Association, where we've mocked up information that can be put on, like, the automated doors, or just the store windows and things like that. So as folks enter, there's information about wearing a mask, staying 6 feet apart. And we're now working with a number of grocery store chains across the state, from Superior to Asian markets. And so excited to not just have it in paid media, but also in community, and are going to be looking for additional ways that we can do that. I know I'm missing a lot, but again, I just, if there's an opportunity for us to work together, please visit our COVID website to look at what material already exists. If there's material that you find is missing, please let us know, because we want to make sure that we're reaching people with the information that they need. And then another appreciation to Listos, because another piece that we recognize is important and we need to do a better job of is creating a community engagement aspect. And so we're thinking about how we can do that, and are starting to explore things like, even if it's just digital town halls, how can we do that in the very near future? And so again, appreciation for Listos for helping us connect with folks on the ground. And I'll stop there.
Well, thank you. I think the takeaway for all of us is just the tremendous commitment being made at the state level, led by the governor's office, to reach the diverse communities. That's not always something that's been as apparent, but now with the COVID, but also with Listos focusing on longer term emergencies, this is a communications challenge. And it's also very reminiscent of the challenges we're facing with the census. So what it all comes down to is, how do we connect? How do we make information immediately relevant when protocols from public health aren't always matching the realities of people's lives? What we hear you saying is that we want to go deeper. With that in mind, I want to take our questions, but lead off with a question for Rosa Maria Hammer that is very consistent with this presentation. Rosa, how do you communicate with farm workers about the importance of preparing for a future disaster when they don't always have a home to secure or a bag to pack? How do you make this information relevant? And maybe you could give us an example. How do you make COVID-19 information relevant? It's a huge challenge given the circumstances of, say, lives of farm workers.
Yes, I think that's a great question. Is making that connection with our communities. We don't have necessarily all the knowledge, but we do have some tools available to help you get started. And I know that one of the questions was also, we're in the middle of COVID-19, how do we focus or get people to focus in preparedness in the midst of this pandemic? And I think the opportunity is when we are able to connect our communities to our farm workers, to our Latino communities, and give them that sense of control, that sense of there's something that you can be doing while you're at home. You can be preparing your family, and it's not really that overwhelming. These are the tools, and these are the 5 simple steps that you can follow while you're at home. You're stuck at home anyways. You can't do much during this time, but you have that sense of control. You can take care of your family members, and this is the information that you can work on. These are the tools that I'm giving you. We have the Disaster Ready Guide, which is the official document. It's a booklet that we give out to anyone that has, you know, and Karen is showing the Disaster Ready Guide. It's translated into 7 languages. We are giving the information to our communities, and we're telling them, these are the tools. This is a Disaster Ready Guide. Here is a go bag. Here's a mask. I'm giving you a head start so you can get started. And so the process really doesn't feel that overwhelming, because that I can do this, that empowerment, and that really works when we make that connection. We've had with our farm workers, we've had in-person trainings, of course, safely social distance trainings, and having that connection, that conversation, that everyday conversation.
I'm going to stop you there, but that was very helpful.
Thank you.
I want to go to another question from Sunita Sarabji. Sorry about the...
Very basic question. We've been talking a lot about stay bags and go bags, and I wonder if Karen or Justin could just address what the basics of those are so that we can immediately take that back to our readers.
Sure can. So we can get you this document today electronically, which is this wonderful guide that was produced that's really graphically, presented, easy to read, that has the ingredients for a go bag. Simple things like documents like copies of identification and insurance, your medications, small cash, dollar bills, $5 bills that you might need, and even if you have to save up a little at a time, a map of your neighborhood that illustrates your evacuation routes, because often if all of a sudden you don't have connectivity, a lot of people have grown dependent on their phones, and they may forget what are a couple of ways out of my neighborhood that are being advised by CalOES. That's just some items. And then obviously as you leave, taking your wallet, your phone, your charger, other items, all of that's listed on the grab and go list. And on the stay box, I think the most important thing is recognizing that there are those emergencies, whether it's a flood or an earthquake, where it may be, depending on the incident, safer for you to stay at home, not to leave. And so what you know from COVID are a lot more items that you might want to have if you're going to be at home over time. But in the case of earthquakes and floods where you might need to be at home, you want to be able to have 3 gallons of water per person for washing, cooking, cleaning. You're going to want food that doesn't spoil. So, canned food that you can save up again over time. We don't want this to be extremely expensive. It may be that you buy 1 extra can of food a week and put it in your stay box. And then trash bags that you may need. So those simple items, and there's other suggestions in the Disaster Ready Guide, which is in all of our languages.
And where are all these materials available?
Yeah, the Disaster Ready Guide will be sent to you after this presentation, after this press conference, and it's all on the listoscalifornia.org website.
Great.
Thank you so much.
I want to get to one more question from Frank Blanquet at FNX TV.
Thank you, Sandy. So In Los Angeles, throughout California, and beyond, how do you plan to reach or support news organizations that already reach and serve or build content and awareness campaigns for Latinx indigenous communities that speak maybe Nahuatl or Zapotec, Mixtec, Maya languages? I'm not sure who the best person to answer is, but how do you reach those communities when you see like some other Native American communities like Navajo Nation or Standing Rock Sioux, they have campaigns that features artwork that speaks to their communities. And so how do you reach?
Great. I'm going to go to Maricela with that question.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, in how do you reach some of the Latinx indigenous communities that don't speak Spanish or don't speak English? They speak Nahuatl, Zapotec, Mixtec, Maya. How do you try and reach those communities?
Right, and that's an area that we definitely want to do more in. When we first started, we started engaging community-based organizations such as MyCop to help us not only think through sort of like the, what the messaging should include, but also asking them for their help and helping us relay the message. And so the way we've organized the toolkit page is, if you're a media partner or if you're a CBO, so those areas where we currently don't have like reach into, where potentially like paid media isn't the way to go. It really needs to be done through community-based organizations. So we really want to do more in that space of building community partners to help us reach through trusted messengers. And it definitely is an area of need that we're hearing in our communities, including in contact tracing, because there's not just sort of public awareness material that needs to be translated, but also materials that folks are getting when they get tested or receive results and things like that. So it's definitely an area that we're looking at and trying to find innovative ways of how we can increase our support for those communities.
Thank you. I'm going to leave the final word to my colleague, Regina Brown Wilson, who is on the call. Regina, do you have final remarks from the perspective of both a busy mother and working from home 24/7 colleague and as director of California Black Media?
I know that we're really, really close to time. And I think that this, for all of the folks who were able to chime in, partners with California Black Media, I think that, for us, I think this was just very enlightening so that we understand what the program is. Many of them will be receiving some of those paid partnerships that we have worked out to help them be able to better understand what's going on in their community. And then also, I think for me, just, hearing all of this in this time frame, I think one of the things that I would like to do is also follow up with the counties in which we've targeted and ensure that we have who the Listos folks are on the ground, whether it be that Red Cross in Los Angeles or whoever it might be in San Diego. I think that will be very, very helpful for the folks that are in our network so that they understand what's going on with the people within their communities and that they can then help highlight and share those stories. I think we all know the story of Hurricane Katrina and think about that kind of natural disaster of a hurricane and what kind of happened, how many people moved to California temporarily, just people being displaced. And, just knowing our own wildfire situation. I think that, I think that we'll be able to really tell the stories of what people need to do. And hopefully that will be able to touch people to, look at those 5 points, the suggestions of things that we need to do, and hope that everybody has that bag, that 3 gallons of water per person. I can tell you right now, outside of my front door, we have that here. If anybody needs it, I think I have more than enough water, courtesy of my husband. But I think we can help our vulnerable communities get there. Because I think that it's, not having those extra resources, we'll really have to pay attention uniquely to what's happening within, for us anyway, for the African-American community. I think there's some different unique challenges of systemic racial issues that have led to not just having that extra dollars to just go be able to do some of these things. So I think we'll have to, have a sidebar conversation of the things that they're hearing, the challenges that they face, and seeing how we can help meet those challenges. So I just want to thank everybody, for being on the call and taking the time today.
Well, thank you. And final remark, as an editor, doing a first-person story off today's briefing, how I'm going to be prepared, is really I think that's what Regina is inspiring in my head, because all of us are so distracted. The idea of preparing for a future disaster seems mind-boggling. The actual need to prepare for the safety of our families. This is what I took away from working with Listos California on this campaign. It isn't an either or, deal with COVID and then we'll think about the disaster later. We're dealing with multiple scenarios on any given day, and we have a remarkable campaign by the state that is trying to help us prepare and get the word out about a culture of emergency preparedness. Thank you to Justin Knight. Thank you to Karen Baker. Thank you to all our speakers for this very informative hour's immersion in Get Prepared for Safety. Thank you.